I'm recording now.
You're recording?
Yep, hold on. Just give me a second. Okay, hello. See? Don't push me.
You know what? You know what we need? We need some sort of like music intro track for the cast.
We could.
Like a newsreel, like
There's one news clip that I've heard in like five other podcasts. But anyways, hi, this is the second episode of the JellyCast podcast, the development and I suppose news podcast about our game Alchemic Cutie. This is Sebastien Backricks. I'm the lead artist, and with me is Tom Cashman.
Yeah, I'm Thomas Cashman, and I'm the programmer for Alchemy Cutie.
Yep. So what we're going to talk about today is the general state of the game uh, here in July of 2018, end of July. And after that, time permitting, we'll go over some convention stuff, some advice, or I guess experiences on, organizing, going to conventions, and how it was like being at those conventions, and some details on how you can sign up to the private build of the game we're going to be testing soon, and that'll be it. So the first thing is the state of the game, and we've been making a whole lot of changes since probably even just the last month,
Yeah.
and so we've been going over things, doing a lot of simplifying, a lot of streamlining. The first one of those things was with the alchemy.
Yeah, so in the alchemy, we used to have a really complicated alchemy system. Well, it wasn't complicated, but the problem was that it wasn't part of the game world as such. You had to go to a table and interact with the table, and then it brought you to a different screen,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had to do all this alchemy through a different screen, and then come back to the game screen. And while it was cool, when we play tested, we found that players were like, "This is cool, but if I have to do this often, it's too tedious."
Yeah.
So now we've streamlined it so that it's part of the overworld where you're just using a hotkey to trigger the alchemy. And the new alchemy system, when you press like let's say you're on a controller and you press up, down, left, or right, that will trigger the alchemy, or D-pad, yeah. It'll trigger the alchemy and you'll have this cool effect, and then you'll get alchemy quirks, as we call them.
Mm-hmm.
And quirks have different effects on the jellies when you feed them to the jellies. And so the alchemy now happens inside of the jelly's stomach.
Yeah, so it's all the alchemy is now connected with the items the jelly eats and what they poop or things like that. So it's not like a separate context, like Tom said. So with the alchemy, we've simplified to about exactly four effects. So we've got transmutation, which is the morph quirk.
Yep.
And that turns an item into another item, depending on what item that is that you're morphing. We also have the join quirk, which combines several items into a single item, so that you can do multiple effects at the same time. It's kind of a way of using alchemy to bypass how long it takes a jelly to digest things.
And it's also a way, if you want to, let's say you have a jelly which has like 5 stomach slots, you can then make a single item with 4 slots, like from the 4 slots,
mm-hmm.
and feed that one item to a jelly that only has a 1-slot stomach.
Yeah. What's the other two? We've got, I think we're implementing a barf quirk. I don't know if that's in yet.
It's not in yet.
Okay. Yeah, so that's part of the streamlining is it used to be a boost quirk, but we're like, that's just kind of like an item effect. So we changed it to a barf quirk that makes jellies spit out items, just in case you feed them the wrong thing or something like that, or there may be situations where you want a jelly to spit out items for other reasons. Oh, and then the fourth is the shatter quirk, which turns items in the stomach into crystals so that you can basically exchange your items, or in a more roundabout way, money. If you buy items, you can exchange those into crystals by destroying them with that quirk. Yeah, so I guess that's basically all the changes with alchemy itself.
Mm-hmm.
And as part of that, we've had to go through, just double check all our item effects, see if they fit in with the system, and which ones are useful, which ones aren't useful, which ones we're missing. That was a bit of a long process of just going through and seeing which ones are good. Tom, you just finished putting all those in, right?
Yeah, so I think we have like 46 possible item effects
Mm-hmm.
together. They range from things like, boosting your stats to, changing the color of your jelly, or speeding up the digestion.
Yeah, or changing their traits and things like that.
So there's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, there is, especially when you have the combination quirks and how you're supposed to combine these things into single items so that they're more effective and stuff like that. Yeah, so we went through a lot of those item effects, streamlined them, figured out what's useful. And part of that process, we had to re-examine some of the other systems in the game that those item effects were linked to, which means there's some basically reduction of dead weight in some of these things. So, for example, with the jellies themselves, we used to have 5 primary stats, but now it's just 4 because speed just was not useful at all. It didn't have any impact on the game. It was just there as a vestigial stat from like the very beginning of the game concept.
And also it simplifies the jelly competitions because we wanted to have different competitions every week, and now we can do 4 weeks in a month, and there's one per competition per stat.
Yeah, we don't have to like mix and match them in strange ways, the stats. We also changed muscle to what we call blob, which is how well it transfers its attributes to its children.
Yeah, that's right.
It used to be muscle, but since jellies aren't very muscular, we just changed it to blob, because the blobbier the better. We also simplified the catching. Originally, the idea was that the jellies would run from you, I don't know, like hide or something, or at one point they were supposed to bop you on the head and you like float back home on a balloon. But we figured that was just like kind of getting away from the feel of the game, right? As far as, easygoing, going around, finding things and stuff like that, instead of having to chase them around or fight with them. There's also been some adjustments to the technology, like the spawning and modding and stuff like that.
Yeah, originally we had a lot of the spawn data in separate files, in XML files, but it was kind of tedious to have to constantly change back and forward between the XML files and then the tile map to see where stuff would spawn. So now it's actually just put into the tile map as part of tiled objects. So you can just place everything visually and then set the properties on the object to be what you want to spawn out.
Yeah, so it's a lot easier to actually pick all those regions now and decide what they do and see where they are in the maps, because you can just look at the map when you're doing it, instead of having to pick the tile indexes and stuff in tiled and then put it into a separate XML. So it's a big improvement. There's also been some improvements to how the modding documentation itself is created, right?
So my concern when we were doing documentation was that I was manually writing a lot of the examples. So now we have it that the examples you see in the XML are automatically generated during build time, so that the XML is always correct to what the game is actually currently using. So this means now we can make sure that the documentation is always up to date a lot easier. Now we still have to write explanations and so on, but it just means that the examples are consistently correct.
Pretty good. It's definitely, and it's also, I don't think it's a live part of the website, but it'll automatically update to our actual website and our modding guide, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so it's definitely very useful. I bet there's been a lot of things where I've tried to find modding resources and it's just like digging through forum posts or going to Wikia
Yeah.
There's so many games that have a Wikia page. It's like, no, it's here. You can just look on our site. We got it. We got you.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, we don't want to have to, because I know a lot of games with modding support rely on the community to do all the documentation,
Yeah.
and that's not really fair. Like, I'd
Yeah.
rather there was a modding community that they can just make mods and not have to worry about documentation being
Yeah, figuring
wrong
out what
or
everything is. It's like, oh, I found a value in an XML file. I wonder what this does. It's like, oh,
yeah,
no, it's there.
yeah,
Just look on the website. We'll tell you.
yeah.
All right, and you also did some improvements to the pathfinding.
Yeah, it was just some, well, mainly just bug fixes. So NPCs can find their way now. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's maybe some path smoothing I can do to make it just look a little bit more natural.
Hmm.
But but now we have NPCs wandering around the game world, so it's a little bit more lively in the demo area now.
Yeah, so that's good. I did notice there's like characters. I was like, oh, I remember them being added at some point, but now I can actually see them because they know where they're going.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's good. Oh, speaking of NPCs, we also added a shop to the game, which we still have to do some editing to because we're overhauling the items. But there is actually the shop in the game where you can buy and sell things from an NPC.
Skeezer.
Skeezer, indeed. So that'll be useful because I know if you without that, I mean, if you play long enough, you'll basically have picked the entire demo area clean at some point. So we don't want that. More or less, that covers what's going on in the game, I guess.
Hmm.
Still working on it. Still making improvements, adjustments, cutting dead weight as we really start to figure out more what the final game is going to look like. I think we've made like super good progress in the last month or two
Yeah,
in
yeah.
terms of improving the game. I mean, before it was, I would say, functional. Before, like, it wouldn't crash and things like that, but things just it wasn't necessarily a good representative of the gameplay that we were intending to have in the final product.
Yeah. The only thing we're missing now is the jelly competitions,
Yeah,
really.
as far as like what actually needs to be put in functionally, I mean,
Yeah.
with all this item stuff, it's more of a planning and game design issue at this point because we can get all the items in. It's just we got to make sure we're putting in the right data.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's going on pretty well.
All of this work is also kind of in an effort leading up to two big conventions, which we can't name just yet because the announcements haven't been made.
Mm.
But we've been leading up to these to launch like public alpha, but we're going to do a private alpha first. And yeah, so these conventions were really, it's going to be crazy because there's going to be a lot of players and gamers
Hmm.
at it, and having the chance to sit down and play the game properly. And it's going to be really, I'm interested to see what the feedback is on a larger scale, you know?
Yeah, and um, boy, it's an undertaking getting all these things sorted out, isn't it?
Well, yeah, like we have to not just have the game ready, we have to do all the paperwork and forms, and we have to
Money,
submit the game for age ratings
spend money.
and money. Yeah, it's also costing money. Yes.
It's pretty expensive. I mean, all together, what do you think you've spent on conventions so far? I mean, do you have an idea?
I'd say, let me think. Well, these two coming up alone is around like 3,500
Yeah.
euro, not including like all the marketing stuff we're doing as well. Like that's just the
Hmm.
boot space and the boot
Yeah.
artwork and stuff.
So it's
Um,
definitely not cheap.
Definitely not. Well, I mean, it could have been more expensive. We were lucky to kind of, well, the announcements will explain,
Yeah,
but it could be,
there were some things that ended up working out for us, which is good. Yeah, it's I haven't been involved in organizing as much with like conventions and getting as much materials ready. Like I've been to a
mm,
couple, and it's like, okay, well, we need like a banner, and we need this, but
mm.
once you get to some of the the larger ones, it's like, okay, we need this extra paperwork, we need this specific thing, and that. So it's like, oh
Yeah.
boy,
Oh, we need 20 seconds of gameplay footage to put into a trailer,
yeah.
and it's really, yeah, it's really crazy.
Yeah, I guess, well, having not done much marketing or outreach or anything like that before. I'm starting to understand why it takes so long to get all that stuff together. It's a good amount of effort that probably gonna have to plan more for in the future as far as scheduling.
Yeah.
Because I think I was feeling a bit of a crunch last week. I was like, boy, spending all time on this thing, and it's like we still have this other stuff to do.
Yeah, it's kind of because this takes some time, and you still have to develop the game, you know.
Yeah. Luckily, I guess it's kind of a one time thing, and once you start to get some of your materials together as far as descriptions of your game and descriptions of the team and all these things like that, you start to build up not a fiction, what do you call it? Like a profile
Yeah,
that you can, hey, be consistent with and just like, oh, you need a description of the game? We got that. You need,
yeah.
this kind of thing, like the audience, oh, we got that, all that kind of stuff. So that's good. Yeah. Do you have any advice for anybody who's going to conventions or anything like that?
Sorry?
Or planning to go?
I guess it depends really what your goal is when you're going. Like these two upcoming ones are very gamer focused, with some business on the side.
Yeah.
So whereas previous ones we've done have been more business focused. So, and there's definitely a difference. You can, you're targeting two different audiences.
Yeah.
For the business ones, I'd always, if you're looking to go to a convention, I'd always recommend looking to see if there's some kind of business meeting system like Meet to Match or something similar. Because I bought business pass for one conference this year and I attended it, but they had no meeting system set up for business users. So you just have to kind of show up and hope that you bump into the person who you want to talk to. Whereas with the other conventions that had a meet to match system, you can log in, you can see who's attending, and you have a timetable system where you can say, okay, we both have this free slot, can we schedule a meeting together?
Yeah.
And they can reject or accept, and it just makes the whole process a lot more efficient. And then even when we went to Digital Dragons, they also had like a pitching session that I pitched the game at, and that got us talking to some publishers as well, and that's always good. Pitching, that was my first time doing like a proper on-stage pitch of the game, and it was a bit nerve-wracking, but I think maybe the more I do it, the better I'll get. The more comfortable I'll be with it.
Okay. Yeah, and the thing is too, you've had some, I think probably some experience with that in your job, at least somewhat.
Not so much pitching, but I mean, in my last job, I did a lot of presentations to customers and clients. So I had some practice doing presentations, but not on such a big stage So there is a slight difference because with pitching, you're asking for something, you're asking for somebody to invest. Whereas when you're doing presentations to customers, they've already bought the product. So you just have to, present training.
Yeah.
So it's slightly different, but there is some kind of skills that you can draw on there. So these two conferences upcoming will be a lot different.
Yeah, it should be fun. And I think one thing that maybe gets overlooked at some points when you're doing all this preparation and creating all these materials and stuff for conventions is that you're like, boy, this is kind of a pain in the butt. I mean, it's all useful, but it's still, you feel like, oh, I really wish I was just working on the game instead of doing this stuff. At least in my case. But when you actually get to the convention, it'll be nice to see people like actually playing the game, and it'll be good feedback and good experiences for those people. And I think it gives you a bit of a boost, I think, afterwards. You're like, oh, wow, well, all this work I'm doing is like start paying off. I should keep working more.
After 3 years.
Yeah. Over the course of 3 years. I always want to be specific about that. But yeah, it's like you did all this stuff and it's like, oh yeah, this is fun. I like it. I'm like, okay, cool. I should keep doing this because people are actually enjoying it. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Well, it's kind of funny as well that
the plane ride.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said I'm
Sorry.
not looking forward to the plane rides to the conventions. Uh, but
Yeah, so the conventions are in Europe, so you're gonna have to fly like what, 8 hours each way?
uh, it's like 24-hour flights
Oh, really? You're changing
plus.
somewhere?
Yeah, it's going from I don't know. It's making a few stops, like a couple stops. Yeah, and I think that mostly it's just because there's like each one has like a super long layover
Hmm.
in one place, but ideally that's probably when I'll be sleeping, so it'll be all right. Um, yeah, so that'll be interesting, and yeah, but I am flying, so we'll both be at the conventions. Uh,
Yep.
we'll be meeting in person the first time at the first convention.
Yeah.
Yeah, couldn't be at the second
Uh,
one if we're going to both. Could it?
It's gonna
I
be
was there at the booth. Where were you? It was like 6 days. I guess we just didn't we didn't run into each other. What do you know? Yeah, so the first one that would be interesting. I think we'll be recording that just for posterity. So that'll be interesting, and it should be fun. It'll be exhausting, but it'll be fun,
yeah.
and hopefully it'll be rewarding for us and for the game and for the people who play it.
Yeah, I hope so. I get a lot of people asking me like, so this is the first time you're meeting this guy? And I'm just like, yeah, pretty much. And they're like, what if he turns out to be like a psychopath or, I'm just like,
It's like, well, we worked together before this.
yeah, yeah,
It's like I hired him before, so
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I
So,
mean, that was the whole thing. I was like, well, I really want to make games, but I don't know anybody who's a good programmer. I'm like, wait a second. Tom said he did programming and he was a programmer. I remember you telling me like, oh yeah, I've been doing the network stuff for this game, whatever. And I was like, oh, he must really know how to program. He must know what he's doing. Let me just email
I,
this guy like, was it like a year later?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, you want to make a game? He was like, okay. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. Is there anything else you want to go over? I think we're probably getting towards the end of the time we set aside.
Um, I think that's pretty much it. I think the only thing left is to say just about the private alpha.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a private build coming out soon, very soon, and we want people to play it, just so we can work on the build and get them, tuned up based on their feedback and just better playing for those actual conventions and stuff. All you have to do is sign up to the mailing list, the Cutie Club, on our website, which is alchemiccutie.com. Do we have a specific URL for the sign up, or is that just a link somewhere?
It's a link on the website.
Okay. We'll post that with this video. So yeah, just sign up and we'll keep you guys updated on when that private build is available if you're interested. And hopefully we'll get a lot of players to try it out and fix things based on what they think.
Hmm.
So I think that's the last of it then, huh?
Yeah, I think that's it.